I'd like to call the June 30th, 2014 Finance Committee meeting to order. Chair would entertain a motion for the consideration of claims.
Your Honor, I would move for the consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $396,184.10. Manual checks in the amount of $60. Checks written for payroll and liabilities for June 13th, 2014 in the amount of $335,348.32 for a total of $731,592.42.
And will you second that?
Second.
All right. Any questions on the bills?
I have one down here on the Central Wyoming College contract for services. Is that a rec?
Yes, Your Honor, it is.
Okay.
I had none.
Any others?
None.
All right. And I don't have any questions today. So all those in favor of the approval of claims say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. All right. Any other business for us, Mr. Weaver, today?
I don't.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
Regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. Would Council Member Larson lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would the city clerk please conduct the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Rich Guard.
Here.
Councilman Martin Canan.
Here.
Councilwoman Mary Ellen Christensen.
Present.
Councilman Jonathan Fabian.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilman Todd Smith.
Here.
Mayor Ron Mortness.
And I am present. Thank you. I declare that we have a quorum this evening. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mayor votes aye. Agenda item number 6, communication from the floor, citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is already on the agenda will be given an opportunity to speak later on. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the council at this time to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on an issue that's not on the agenda?
Seeing none, Your Honor, I move to close.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. In the interest of, consent agenda, would the city clerk please read the consent agenda by title only, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes June 17th, 2014, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes June 24th, 2014, special council meeting. Approval of the minutes June 30th, 2014, finance committee meeting. Excuse me. Approval of finance committee recommendations for June 30th, 2014. Approval of discharge fines of deceased defendants for June of 2014. And the city clerk's office received a malt beverage permit application from Mega Promotions for September 6, 2014 for a monster truck show at the fairgrounds from 7:30 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Your Honor.
Okay, yes.
It's the recommendation of the Finance Committee for the approval of claims to be paid in the amount of $396,184.10. Manual checks in the amount of $60. Checks written for payroll liabilities for June 13, 2014 in the amount of $335,348.32 for a total of $731,592.42.
Okay. Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda.
Your Honor, I would move to approve consent.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mayor votes aye. Agenda item number 8, R-Bar request for additional square footage of outdoor serving area. City clerk's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. We received a request from Ricky and Mark Larson to increase the size of their serving area outside. And if you remember, I believe Hilltop did this, and there was one other that all we need is approval from the governing body to give them the permission to do that. So this is in addition to their application, but we just need to keep it current and let the Liquor Commission know what they're doing. Okay, so it's just increasing their serving area outside their building and giving them permission to serve alcohol out there. And I believe Sandy had a few updates because there were some questions about parking requirements.
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. Not only that, we did meet with Mr. Larson on site and to make sure that there was still sufficient exiting from that area for safety reasons, and also the area where they're going to exit, we wanted to make sure it was illuminated in case of an emergency, same as we do with any other building. And we have worked most of those issues out with Mr. Larson this time. The parking is an issue even at this point in time. He's going to lose a little bit of parking with the additional fencing. So probably the only thing is if we do get a lot of complaints in this area, it might be something that we, council might have to address in the future on this.
I see. And is that a satisfactory arrangement with Mr. Larson? Did you want to address the council on this issue, Mark? Or? Okay.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, and Councilman, and Mary Ellen. First of all, pardon the attire. I've just come off my 20th hour of cleaning down a driveway that's been neglected for, I think, in excess of 40 years.
Wow.
And we look to blacktop the driveway, and basically what we're what we're trying to do is improve the site and the facility and add some seasonal seating out back. And I don't know if Sandy has a depiction of the expansion that we're planning to do, but basically we're going to expand our fence out. There's a little area out behind the bar where they had sand back there, and it was kind of an outdoor seating, seasonal. We want to double the size of that with fencing around it, and we're going to lose 2 parking spots where that fencing will go, but I actually think that we're going to gain 2 that will park east-west right behind that fencing. People couldn't park there before because if somebody parked north-south, nobody could park behind them. Today, or when we get this done, they'll be able to park east in an east-west configuration. So I don't think we're going to lose parking spaces in the limited area that we have. We're already starting with a limited area, but what we're trying to do is just upgrade a facility that's needed a little TLC. It's and we've done a lot of work. We want it to reflect well on the community. We're making it a smoke-free facility. It's been a smoking bar probably since day one. We think that smoke-free is certainly much healthier. We are very concerned about safety in running a bar, and we know that the city is also shares those concerns, and that's our top priority. This is just to add room for some gaming areas where we can play bocce and some sandbag games and things like that, and then have the shaded area again for the seasonal activity back there. And we just need to expand the room, and hopefully it helps our business.
Okay. To answer your question, yes, each of the councilmen have received a copy of that plan that you have drawn out, and it looks very functional to me.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to make sure that you felt comfortable with the arrangement that you have with Sandy and her office. And
Sure. Oh, Sandy,
everybody's
Dave, yeah.
happy there, and the city's happy from a code standpoint. And
Your Honor.
so, yes,
We-
Councilman Larson.
Are we going to change the when we say we're going to change parking, are we going to mark that so that that change is visual?
Yes. We're actually, tomorrow we're going to bring in a company that's going to oil the parking lot for us. I don't think it's been oiled since day one. We're going to fill some holes. We're going to put a blacktop on it, not a new, 2 inches or something like that, but just oil so it looks good. And we painted the building. We're going to add new signage, and it's going to be clean. And it's needed it for some time.
Yes.
We will have stripes for parking, designated parking stripes, we would like to have some events there, like a barbecue contest and things like that in the future, and we'll come back to the board for this. But as far as parking, people have, because it's limited already, they've had to find other parking spaces, and they've made do with those parking spaces, and we haven't heard any complaints since we've owned it, since mid-October of last year.
Okay, thank you. Council have any question of Mr. Larson? Okay, thank you, Mark. We appreciate your coming this evening.
Welcome, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, the chair would entertain a motion regarding the R-Bar request.
Your Honor, I'd make the motion to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mayor votes aye. Agenda item number 9, Fremont County Solid Waste Disposal District Presentation. Mr. Fry. Thank you.
Mayor, council members, I appreciate having the opportunity to talk to you guys a little bit about the solid waste district and some of the changes we're working to implement.
Can you identify yourself for the record?
Absolutely. My name's Andy Fry. I'm the superintendent for the Fremont County Solid Waste Disposal District.
Okay, thank you.
Apologies. I guess what I'd planned to do tonight was just to go over briefly some of what we're going to be doing, give you a background to plan, and talk a little bit about the impacts of the changes that have been adopted. Following that, we could certainly have some open discussions if you're open to it, and maybe answer some questions. The last 3 years, the district, the solid waste district, began looking closer at our financial health and discovered some deficiencies in our funding long-term, specific to our liabilities. So, I didn't do that. Last year, in 2013, we hired a third-party consultant to complete an in-depth review of our current operational costs and provide alternative operational configurations. The goal with this was to maintain our current disposal fees over the next 20 years, if possible, given the current regulations. Our consultants, and again, the consultants we hired were solid waste professionals. They weren't just an accounting firm that came in and went based on the numbers. We based it off operational or industry standards throughout the state and the country. The consultant confirmed our inability to stay financially solvent with the current operations and regulations. So following a review of the alternative operational configurations from the consultant, the Solid Waste Board adopted 9 operational changes with intentions to implement them today, as many as we could. Today being July 1. So the impacts to the Riverton community, really the only operational change that'll impact the Riverton area is the reduction in hours at the Sandra landfill and the Riverton bale station, which is the same reduction that we implemented in Lander as well. The change will take the sites, both the Riverton bale station and the Sandra landfill, from 7 days a week, which were Monday through Sunday, to Tuesday through Saturdays. Still 8 to 5, but we'll be closed Sundays and Mondays. In some of our discussions with the Public Works and then with FCAG, we've understood that these changes do impact what you guys are doing, and it sounds like you guys are working on a solution long term. The district has been open to working with your group and allowing you guys till the first of the year actually to fully implement the change. So we appreciate the opportunity to work with you for that. I'd gladly take any questions or hear any comments.
Okay. Anyone have any questions at this time for Mr. Fry?
I do, Your Honor.
Councilman Guard?
Andy, appreciate you coming. I've been a ghost for a while, and I've been poking holes at you. Have some questions to ask you. In your letter to us, you say that the top 3, you have 3 focuses, but you only seem to list 2. Equipment replacement and future capital expenses. What's the third one?
I apologize. Let me reference what I'd sent you.
I appreciated the comparison to Natrona County that you used, because sometimes we lose track of the numbers, and it's interesting to see how that works.
Could you help me find what you're specifically?
Third paragraph down, last sentence, where it says, which includes infrastructure and the closure of other landfills.
So the Councilmember Guard, Mayor, the top three areas that impacted our budget and our financial concern are personnel, being one, equipment replacement being the other, and future capital expenditures such as landfill expansions, enclosures, additional infrastructure.
Okay. What is the total budget that you're working with?
Our annual operating budget runs right around $7 million.
And that's generated half by the 3% mill levy?
Yes, sir.
And so we find ourselves having to generate through tipping fees another 3.5 million.
Yes, sir.
We recently went to WHAM meeting and ran into the PAL guys, and you probably already know what the question is. PAL's shipping their waste to Billings, and they're shipping it to Billings for $57 a ton hauled to Billings with freight charges. And we believe we're paying about $80 a ton to tip in Fremont County. That's caused quite a stir in Park County, because PAL was somewhat of a cash cow, which the city of Riverton feels like we're in that position of the cash cow. What do you think about such a process?
Mayor, Councilman Guard, Powell's fortunate to be located in an area where they have a solid waste facility nearby that they could find lower disposal costs. The difficulty that we have here in Fremont County is that we're servicing a county that's 9,400 square miles with a population of 40,000. We don't have the efficiencies of scale that some other facilities have. We're trying to provide a reasonable service throughout the entire county, and we're trying to operate within our means. Thus, the reduction in services that we're now implementing, we're working as hard as we can to be financially responsible.
In reference to that, the two surveys that you got, the 58-page and the 63-page, any idea on top of your head what you paid for those?
For the reports? Yes, sir. The entire project cost right around $130,000.
It brings me down to a couple questions that I have. In your fourth paragraph, the last sentence there, it says that the current goal is to maintain or even lower the disposal fees in the next 20 years. Do you have any concept that we may be able to lower fees?
Mayor, Councilman Guard, this was drafted prior to our last report that was received as part of this project. The last report did look at our, it sort of put structure to the adopted changes and looked at a rate structure over the next 20 years, taking into consideration the potential for grants. There was some current legislation that went through that create that potential, but the final, I guess the final direction the board took from the last report was that we were going to maintain the current disposal fee. We just you can't count on the potential for grants when these bills aren't fully funded.
No. The letter implies that all of some things Mr. Weaver told me 2-3 weeks ago, that we're not using the bailing stations to bail any longer. The reports came back that tell us that it's better to loose pack the trash than to bale it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And those facilities aren't much older than 5 years old, correct?
The Councilman Guard, the balers are right at 10 years old.
They're that old, okay. So are we going to use city equipment to transport all the way to Lander to dump trash, or are we going to still dump in the bailing stations and the county is going to pick up the bailing stations and move to Lander?
Mayor, Councilman Guard, I will answer that, but I wanted to step back just one moment. We will continue to use the bale stations to process recycling commodities. It's the most efficient manner to process and ship those, so we will still use the balers. They won't be taken offline. With regards to your second question, it's our intent to allow the city of Riverton to continue to dispose of the waste down at the bale station and not haul to Lander.
Not haul to Lander, but you're going to haul to Lander to all household waste. Only construction demolition is going to go into the Sandra landfill, is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's sort of a short-term plan we have, short-term being the next 9 years. The Lander landfill is bound more by a date than it is by a volume, which is unusual for a landfill. But there was an agreement entered into with the Wyoming DEQ about 10 years ago that set that date, and now we're bound to it, even though there are efficiencies that have been discovered and implemented that would allow us to go longer, but we're just limited with the date.
And that was to close in, I'm having problems finding it myself, it was 2024, isn't it? There it is. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
2024.
We have to cease acceptance of waste at some point in 2023 to allow us time to close the site by August of 2024.
My next question is kind of the hours that you've set. When does the average guy that works, when does he go to the landfill? You got banker's hours set.
Councilmember Guard, Mayor, I guess our hours continue to be 8 to 5, which I guess are similar to many banks, but they're also quite similar to many other facilities, and it is just a standard. The general person, the common person, we anticipate will use the site Saturdays, which is why we structured it as we did, to continue to allow them a weekend date and opportunity.
Could we move those hours to where we start at 10 and close at 7?
Mayor, Councilmember Guard, I guess I could bring that past our board. I don't really see that would be something that they would adopt, but we could certainly look into it.
Okay. What other closures are you planning? I see that Shoshone is supposed to close by 18.
Yes, sir, Mayor, Councilmember Guard. The nearest closure date that we have would be the Shoshone landfill. We anticipate closing that a little bit early just due to non-use. And we actually had a phase closure scheduled already for 2018, so we're going to move that up. We chose that date based on the construction and demolition dates for School District 24. Shoshone, they intend to build a new school and have it constructed by June of 2016, allowing them a certain amount of time to use that facility if they need to during their demolition. The next phase closure we have would be a part of the Sandra landfill, a northern tier of that. That's just a small portion of it. We're going to work to close that in 4 different phases. After that, we'd have the Lander landfill in 2024, but we're also setting aside money for the closures of these facilities, but also the expansion of the Sandra landfill. As we could fill the current 60-acre phase, we're going to move to the south. And when we do that, the cost associated with that is pretty high, given that it'll be a engineered containment system design. So
Put a liner in.
Yes, sir.
Is there, and I don't mean to shoot the messenger, the question that I have is there any pushback? Are we ever going to push back on the regulations that are coming down from the EPA and the DEQ state divisions, where we have fairly well-maintained facilities that we're always got a closure date hanging over us? It seems so unrealistic. Is there any way that we can push back and get those more realistic?
Mayor, Councilman Guard, I guess you can look at this in 2 ways, but Fremont County is sort of known throughout the state as a black sheep because we do just that. We don't roll over when the state tries to impose specific dates. We're very active with the legislation and the rulemaking processes with the state, and both on the regulation side and the legislation side. So we're doing everything within our means to do just that and limit the, I guess, the governing boards.
We have a landfill that's in the old landfill in Riverton that we felt was in closure state, which now we understand is not in closure state, that it's reopened, and we had to look at how to contain that further. Their rules just keep changing. There is no playbook on that side of the equation. I don't know if you feel that way, but I certainly do.
Mayor, Councilmember Guard, I don't know the details associated with your landfill. I know you guys have a pretty significant challenge ahead of you, and Don, Wilhelm, and I have had some discussions to see if there was something that we could do to help assist with that project or that task. But I'm not familiar with the details.
Do we need to look at changing the mill levy instead of the tipping fees?
Mayor, Councilmember Guard, my understanding is that the mill levy is set by the state, and that it would be a pretty significant task to have that changed. I think that as we continue to improve our efficiencies, we should be able to hold, again, we're trying to hold our disposal fee for the next 20 years, so I'm quite confident in the direction we're going and that we will be able to limit it to what it is.
What would it do to your operations if we were to do like PAL and move our trash elsewhere?
Mayor, Councilmember Guard, again, there's always the efficiency of scale, so it would impact us significantly. I don't know just to what extent.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Garden. I would just like to inject at this point that I personally really appreciate your coming over this evening, Andy, and I know it's difficult. The city of Riverton, I think, has growled at the Solid Waste Board for a long time. I can remember being on the council in 2000, and we've had many of these discussions when Howard Johnson was, on the board and on, and it, we got the bail system and spent a lot of money there, and went round and round with the county commissioners. So it's been a long, torturous route, and it's a very expensive part of the equation that the city of Riverton has to deal with. And so please don't take anything personal here. We recognize that you're kind of like the rest of us, hired employee, and doing the best you can given the equation that you're given. So I really appreciate your coming over this evening and sharing with us what you're up against and everything. So,
Mayor?
So, BLEs, yes, Councilman Larson.
I'd like to, I'm a stupid person, but I can't figure out how a compactor can be doing a worse job than a piece of equipment running over a freestanding without any resistance against it, how it can compact better.
Mayor, Councilmember Larson, what we see with the waste balers is that they'll achieve somewhere between 900 and 1,000 pounds per cubic yard. So that's the density of the bale that is ejected out of that. And they come out in a mostly rectangular shape, but when you go to place them in the landfill, you cannot place them in a manner that removes the airspace between them. So even though your bale may be somewhere between 900 and 1,000 pounds per cubic yard, when you place it into the landfill, you lose a portion of that. And what we're seeing in our capacity audits is that we're achieving less than 800 pounds per cubic yard overall once the waste is placed into the landfill. Industry standards and what I've seen personally is that you will achieve 1,100 pounds per cubic yard or greater using waste compaction equipment. And the reason for that is similar to working soil, is you place it in there with thin lifts and you run it over with a waste compactor, which is somewhat similar to a sheep's foot.
I've seen them.
And what you do is, with the right number of passes, that equipment actually shreds it and compacts it at the same time. So you remove more and more of those air voids that the waste balers can't And then as you do that, you continue on it with a certain number of passes, and at the end of the day, you place your daily cover soils. At the end of prior to the start of the next day, you then remove those cover soils. A lot of times when you're working with bales, you lose a lot of the soils in the air voids between them, thus continuing the problem of lowering your density. I'm probably not that great at describing this, but
Oh, I understand totally. I just don't believe it.
Been told, but he hadn't been told.
Thank you.
Okay,
Your Honor.
yes.
Andy,
Councilman Christensen.
I have a question, or correct me if I'm wrong. So when I looked into the issue of other places, you know, sending their trash elsewhere, I don't know if you can speak to the removal of the waste on the reservation and Rollins. When I called Rollins, it didn't sound like it sounded like a losing battle over there. I don't know how Wind River Reservation is doing at this point, but if you could speak to that a little bit, just so people understand that maybe it is the answer, maybe not. I don't know.
Councilmember Christensen, Mayor, I guess whatever I say here shouldn't be considered the gospel because I'm not familiar with all the details. It seems to me that in some ways the tribes have an advantage in that they've been able to secure grants to purchase their equipment where other facilities actually don't necessarily get those same grants and opportunities to fund that. I think that's what has made that diversion of their waste to Natrona County or the city of Casper possible. With respect to Rollins, I know that they had a lot of difficulties with permitting their landfill and maintaining their operations at their landfill. So that may be what drove them to transferring their waste to Casper. I'm just not certain.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Anyone else? Yes, Councilman Fabian.
A couple questions. The first I have is, how did we end up in the bail system to begin with if it's that inefficient?
Mayor, Councilmember Fabian?
Fabian.
I wasn't with the Solid Waste District when they made that decision, so I'm not necessarily, again, certain of all of the details. But given the information that they had at the time, that was the best approach that they had available. Since about 1992, solid waste has really been changing nationwide due to some EPA regulations that were established. And goals, taking a step back here, Wyoming's unique that it has such an arid environment, and the state took a different approach and was allowed to do something different than the rest of the country in the early 90s. And since then, we've sort of been playing catch up. And at that time, there was a lot of rapid changes in regulations and operations, and the balers achieved a density that probably wasn't being achieved at that time. I'm not certain just the number of passes, the appropriate use of the equipment at that time. But balers also do limit other things such as litter. They make transfer of waste a little bit easier. So with the complete change of their systems, creating an opportunity to dispose of waste here in town and thus transporting that waste either to Sandra or another facility, probably altogether made that decision.
Next question I have is it's my understanding that the landfill was only being used for construction waste previously. Is that not correct?
No, sir, that's not correct.
Oh, okay. I thought that it had been changed to that. The final question is, as a council member, it feels to me like the way things happened with your board was kind of backwards. I would have really appreciated the opportunity to have this conversation prior to the rules having already been set, so that the city of Riverton had, and not just staff, but everyone had the chance to sit down and look at what we were faced with. And I appreciate the fact that you're willing to work with us for 6 months, but in the end, the truth is we are your major funding stream in Riverton. And for me, it wasn't well appreciated to not be spoken to before now.
Mayor, Councilmember Fabian, I completely understand your disgust, I guess is probably the most appropriate word. When we started this process, there was a board member that was from Riverton, represented your group, and since the process has continued as long as it has, that has changed. There's nothing that we can do to correct that at this point, but I think in the future, one thing that maybe the council could consider is having a liaison at our meetings. That's one of the things the town of, or the city of Lander has done. It may create an opportunity for a more open dialogue between both your board and the Solid Waste District Board, just as a suggestion.
Thank you.
That's certainly something that we're planning on doing, and it would be a non-voting position is my understanding.
Yes, sir.
So, and that given that you have a 9-member board and the amount of money that the city is putting into the solid waste district, we feel that having a voting member on the board is not an unreasonable request. I know we talked about that at the FCAG meeting, and we recognize that it's an appointed position by the county commissioners, and you have no direction over that, so we won't beat you up too bad. But at any rate, it is a concern that we've had in that area. So,
Mayor, if I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but as of the first of this year, there will be 3 vacant positions on the board.
Great.
So that would certainly create an opportunity for somebody from the Riverton area.
Certainly want to have 1 or 2 of those, maybe 3.
Are
So
those,
we don't want to get greedy, but
are those appointed or how?
they're appointed by the county commissioners. And so people that are interested in being on those boards. So,
Your Honor,
yes, Councilman, or
Andy, would you talk to us about recycling, how you feel about recycling and how it's effective and if it's effective?
Mayor, Councilmember Guard, I think recycling is a very beneficial process and approach. Waste diversion in this state could certainly use some improvements. We continue to invest in recycling and hope to continue to grow it. The most recent report shows our recycling or diversion rates only at about 11%. Again, we have been working to rework our facilities, make it more convenient for the customers, send out communications and marketing to try to find additional interest and grow it. Long term, it's certainly the solution. We all have it in the back of our mind that Wyoming's a big state and there's endless areas to permit facilities, but it's just not that simple.
Even finding the market would be truly successful for us if we could find better markets for the recycled products that we do come up with.
Certainly. The other obstacle, of course, is freight. Given our geographic location, freight to an end user, whether it's Salt Lake City, which we do direct many of our commodities to, or even some to the West Coast, just because of the cardboard market out there being strong enough to justify them freight. But the freight is one of our biggest challenges. We've been working with a group out of Salt Lake City pretty regularly the last few months, and we're trying to promote a couple of different ideas that we hope will lower that. And if we can get a better handle on freight, we should be able to even expand our operation.
Thank you, Your Honor.
okay, thank you, Councilman Gordon. Is there any other questions of Mr. Fry? I'd just like to comment as well that I appreciate your willingness to help us with the other closure issue that we have on our existing landfill that we're going to have to deal with, and your willingness to help us there, I think, is really appreciated. So, and I can't think of anything else. I was on the council in 2000 to 2004, and at that time we certainly were talking about the baling system, and I recall much of that discussion, and it would have been nice if we had had your current state of affairs to answer Councilman Fabian's concern, because at that time we were told that squishing thing into the bale fill and stacking them in there like bricks, you know, you could get much better compaction, you could get much better, you could also stack them high so you didn't have to go through all the covering, you didn't have the stuff blowing all over, you didn't have to make nearly as many trips out to the landfill to haul loose garbage and burn up all the diesel, and on and on and on. And those arguments now apparently were not correct, and so now we're throwing that out the window and going the other direction. So it makes you kind of wonder if we have a firm handle on what it is we're exactly doing. And the only thing all of us agree on, it's very expensive. And so that's a real concern. But can you tell me how much recycling is done by Waste Management in the county?
Mayor, by Wyoming Waste, the commercial hauler?
Yes. Do they have any program out there? I'd heard that they don't have.
Mayor, it's my understanding that they do not have anything. I know they had been looking into it in Lander for a potential curbside, but to my knowledge, they have not implemented anything.
Okay. So this 11% is 11% of the solid waste that's going into the landfill now, and their tonnage is part of that. Is that not correct?
Mayor,
So our community, I guess what I'm getting at is our community, which we've spent a lot of time and effort on the recycling, may be doing 20-25%.
Mayor, that is a possibility. I would have to look to see just what portion of that the community of Riverton makes up.
Okay.
I know you guys have certainly put a lot of effort into promoting your own recycling program, and we certainly appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, we just feel that it's the right thing to do, and it certainly is, as I indicated, an expensive process getting rid of our garbage. So, does the council have any other questions of Mr. Fry? Okay. Thank you for coming this evening,
Thank
Andy.
you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah,
Thank you,
good
Council.
job. Okay. Agenda item number 10 is Central Wyoming Skateboarding Association location of skate park in City Park. City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. What we're here tonight is to approve a location of the skateboarding park and also to consider the placement of a sign in the park, a professional sign. So just a little background, we've been talking about this for some time. On October 15, 2013, the CWSA presented to the council a conceptual plan of the skateboard park they would like to build in Riverton. On October 17, 2013, they sent a letter addressed to the city council and mayor requesting the $40,000 that has been set aside for park improvements in the capital plan to be used for a skate park. The council approved their request with the stipulation that it be built in City Park. CWSA has continued to fundraise, and they'll continue to fundraise. They have applied or are planning to apply for Wyoming Community Foundation grants, state lands and water grants, Daniels Funds Foundation, Warrior Field Services, Fremont County Rec Board, and School District 25 Rec Board. Some of these grants are requiring that a specific site of where the location be placed in order to even apply for the grants. And so that's kind of the need for them to secure a site in the park so they can actually start applying for some of these bigger grants. So Joel Blurry, he's the park superintendent, myself, Matt Wright, which is the co-chair of CWSA, and I went to the city park and we looked at possible locations. And at the end of my presentation, I'll go up and actually show you on the map the ones we were looking at. I really thought when we went there that we'd find a whole bunch of locations. However, a lot of them didn't meet the criteria of the site requirements of how big they needed. So the total area needed for the skate park is 100 feet wide and 195 feet long. The skate park itself will only be 68 feet wide and 160 feet long. However, the berms are needed at each of the ends to cover up the bowls, and you have pictures in your packet that show the berms going up and the need to have those berms, otherwise we'd have a safety concern. And so I will bypass the actual locations. We'll talk about them as I bring these up. Or maybe, Kristen, can you try to bring that up and we'll just talk about it? Okay, why don't you go to the very last slide, which shows a picture of the, there we go. Okay. Let's see. So the first site that we looked at, let's see, I got to make sure I get my bearings, was this site right here, which is just west of the tennis courts. In this area wasn't wide enough because with the berms, you would have, let's see what's new here. I can't even work this thing. The berms would start literally like right next to the sidewalk and start going up. And, you know, for safety purposes and also just aesthetics, it just would not be a good site. And so we ruled that one out. The next site we looked at was right here. And this wasn't long enough. If you started right where the top lot is and went south, it would run in halfway through the road in order to meet the length requirements. And so those two sites only could work is if you actually shrunk those or made the park a little bit smaller. So next we went to the locations here, and there's actually two locations we looked at. The first one was parallel with the skate park. And that could work, but in talking to skateboarders, which I'm not, the bowls are on each end, and if you're looking towards the west, if you're doing the bowl, the sunlight would come into your eyes and you wouldn't be able to see what you're doing. And so their preference would be to have the skate park going this way.
North and south.
Yeah, north and south. And so that was the location we felt would be the best part in the park. You know, there's other locations you could look at. This is currently being used as baseball. I mean, this year, I think the first time in the couple years that I've been here, they were actually practicing out there and using that as truly as a baseball field. These areas up in here are more the day in the park. It's more the open area. And so the areas down, oh, my lands. Takes a scientist to figure this out. So anything south of the sidewalk right here was areas we looked at. And so I guess our recommended site was that site just south of the sidewalk next to the tennis courts that would run parallel with Federal. These locations were looked at because it doesn't interfere with any other activities in the park. Other locations in the park could work, but they may cause some interference with other things. In all locations we looked at, trees are going to have to be removed and sprinkler systems would have to be moved. And there's trees all over the park, and so there's really no way of getting around that. Some of the current location challenges that we have in the current park, the largest concern is being located right next to the band shelter, which has caused some noise complaints in the past, and now the skate park is locked during those events. For instance, the cool nights that we had, I think just last night, the skate park was locked up. The other concern brought up by CWSA is the parking lot is too close to the existing skate park, which causes some concerns for people just hanging out in the parking lot, hanging out right around there, and they kind of get the bad reputation that comes with that. If it was located in a different location, they wouldn't be hanging out there. They're also just looking for a fresh start because the reputation of where it's at right now is not very good, and having it in a different location would give them a fresh start to start over. The other option we looked at later on, not in our tour, was just the existing skate park. And obviously it's going to have the same concerns we just brought up. It's right next to the band shelter. The fence could be taken down, the concrete would have to be removed, And then the old swimming pool would have to be looked at. I'm not sure what the extent of that would be in ways of if you could build over something or if you'd have to secure that to make it more secure so it wouldn't sink. The existing fenced area is 124 feet by 248. There would be additional expense in this location for the removal of the concrete, and being too close to the band shelter would still be a problem. The other concern is being too close to that bathroom building right there, where if you had people launching off accidentally, they could possibly go into the building itself. Some options that could be used, I guess some of the concerns that I had, and I heard other council members, is what are we going to do with the site if we move it to another location? Is it just going to become a dilapidated place that turns into nothing? Some of the things I thought of was additional parking spaces. You know, you could extend the parking lot that's in there right now and add more parking to the park. That would be good. You could have events like the farmer's market in there. You could make it into a shelter area, build a shelter over the top and put picnic tables in there. Or you could just tear it all out and put the grass back in. The Parks and Trails Committee cannot recommend a location at this time until the final master plan has been adopted, but they have been aware of the proposed location and had no opposition to it. The issue for CWSA is what we've said before, is they really need to have a location so they can apply for some grants. In addition to this, and not related directly to this, is the sign issue, and we placed a sign in there. And maybe we can scroll back and look at some of these pictures. So this is the sign that they're proposing to put in the park. Initially, they were talking about putting it right at Main and Federal, and it would be there, and it could be there for up to a year or a year and a half, depending on how long it takes to fundraise to get the money needed at the $270,000. The concern from staff is once you open that door of signs, we're going to have everybody that's a nonprofit or anybody that's looking to fundraise is going to be wanting to put signs there. So what staff came up with is to propose putting that on the site itself. And that makes a lot more sense. It doesn't get the exposure that they would like, but it does give some location as to where it's going to be built, and the people using the park would see that. You could either attach it right to the tennis courts wire, or you could put it located right in the location itself. And so our recommendation would be the site that we proposed, along with putting the sign on the location of the proposed site.
How large a sign are you talking about?
I believe it's a 4x8. Is that right?
Closer to 7x8 with the...
Matt, could you come up to the microphone and so those folks at home can... And
Matt, while you're up there, you could
identify yourself for the record, if you would, please.
I just wanted to see the other pictures.
Stay on the sign subject right now, but okay. Mayor, council. The top portion, the colored portion, is on a 4x8 sheet of plywood, protected from the weather, and it's a vinyl banner type sign which will secure to the board. And then the sponsor portion underneath is a separate one, but it will be connected to it. And I believe that one was 8 by 3.5 or 3 even. So it's 8 by 6 or 8 by 7, somewhere in there. To answer that question, they'll will increase the red thermometer as more funds become available. And sponsor stickers. There's more room than that actually for sponsor stickers as we continue to fundraise.
Yes, Your Honor, there's a few pictures. This is the actual park right here. And they've just put a section of where the actual skate park would be located, so you can get an idea. And then if you move to the next screen, it shows the actual skate park itself put in there. And then you can see the berms on the sides because the bowls go up, I think, about 6 or 7 feet. And so they need, for safety concerns, they need to have the berms go up there right next to it.
If I might, Steve, we've had some people who have seen the picture of our design on things and have been worried that if you were just walking your dog in the park, you could fall in a pit. But everything's ground level. All the flat area is at the same level as the grass, and then everything above that has a grass hill, a berm that goes up to it. So if you were walking your dog, you'd have to climb up a hill to fall in the pit. So, which is much safer because you can drive an ambulance in there, or if something were to happen.
So it doesn't have a bowl, so to speak. The whole sides of it is a bowl.
Correct. It's an open bowl concept. You're right. Landers is a closed bowl.
It's a closed bowl, and I've thought about that. Okay, if somebody breaks their arm and they're down in the bottom of it, how do the paramedics get down in? And there was no steps or anything, and it was a pretty steep, where this is, you have the same concept, but it's just a different design. Open bowl. I like that. Okay.
Your Honor,
Yes, Councilman Fabian.
if this skate park proves extremely successful and you guys were to have enough money to do so, is it expandable, or is it kind of as it is?
Yeah, absolutely. Dreamland, the company who's building it, well, I shouldn't be quoted saying that. We haven't officially signed the contract with them yet, but they did Landers Park, and we like that a lot, and they're known for being able to come in and just add to it, redesign. This area is a good location for if expansion were possible in the future. So I don't see any problem with right now with the design being able to expand. There's a huge flat section that could be extended, kind of have an arm that goes out into a different area. If I could add to Steve's talking about area and moving the location to a grassy area away from a parking lot specifically. Kids need a place to go, and I understand that, and I there's a lot of kids who do go hang out and have fun, and they may not bring boards or bikes or scooters, and they just kind of chill, and maybe that's better than being in a basement somewhere, and good to be outside. But a skate park is meant to obviously to encourage an athletic drive, and if you have we've studied skate parks all over the nation, and if you have a pathway that leads from the parking lot to the skate park, and there's quite a bit of a distance, the kids who don't bring bikes and skateboards are less likely to walk over to the skate park. So it encourages them to bring their bikes, to bring their boards, and then the skate park is being used and encourages more people in the community to use it as well.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Is there any drainage problem here?
Council and Mayor, it's a flat surface that is slightly tilted, not enough to really notice, but enough for water to drain. The bowl is, again, it's the bottom part of the bowl is flat along with the grass, so water can pour out. Whereas right now it's where the ice skating rink used to be, which is made to hold water in, so it's been collecting water a lot, but the city's been great in pumping that out for us. So.
Okay. A question that I have, and the pictures don't show it very well. Mr. Weaver and I went down and stomped around the grass there a little bit, and he pointed out where he thought that it was going to be, and on and on. But It doesn't give you any indication of the distance between your footprint and the rocked playground area. What is that distance between there that's grass? What are you thinking about?
I remember, I have it in my notes, but
There'd be a strip down there that we would have to maintain and mow and whatnot.
certainly. Do you remember that, Stephen, if it was
Yeah.
40 feet or something?
I thought it was 20-something, and I remember I said, is that too narrow to get a mower down there? He said, no, it would work.
Would there be, or what would be the considerations if the skate park was just shoved right up against that and take that grassed area out so you don't have to worry about taking care of it?
My concern would be safety.
Yeah.
If a board flies out into the playground or a bike, you know, some of these kids can do some pretty awesome stuff in the air, and I you know, getting a little bit of a distance from the playground would probably be a little safer.
Now, is there a berm on that side of it as well, or is it open as it is on this side?
There's not. If you can,
Want this?
I mean, laser pointer, yeah. So if you can see, right, there's berm here where it starts and the
Yes.
bowl, and the berm here. And
Yes.
about the same distance. So there'd be a berm, probably about the length. There'd be a berm about half the length of the playground, maybe a little less, and then there'd be quite a bit of flat area. Although there is, see this ledge, this kind of a grind ledge. There's another one of those over here, and so there'll be a concrete wall of sorts right there, and then a flat just like this, and it's almost the same length of flat, probably about 10 feet less.
From the
I don't know if
picture,
I explained that very well. Do we have an aerial picture of the park here in the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
yes, but it doesn't show the
Small.
foot.
Oh, no.
It doesn't show your.
It doesn't show the
facility.
park, it's just
Yeah.
it doesn't show the skate park, just the park itself.
The
Yeah.
picture that we have, when you look at it, and then you look at the tennis courts behind it, the edge of that would be the southeast corner of your park, that's significantly greater than 20 feet.
You're saying from
to the edge of the tennis court. And so I was just, I guess my concern is that it looks like it's scooching towards Federal in this picture more than what you're talking about. And I just want to make sure we're on the same page there. I certainly want it to be safe as far as its position next to the playground. We wouldn't want to put it, you know, too close to it if you were concerned about safety issues with the little children that were in there. But I also don't want to be gobbling up any more of our park than what's necessary.
Sure. I'm sorry, was there a question there?
I guess a statement, just so that we're on the same page.
Sure.
Yeah, and this picture that you have here just indicates to me that it's a lot more than 20 feet.
From the playground to the east edge?
No, from the
From the tennis court to the...
Your Honor,
yes.
I think to clarify, probably if you're looking at the picture that doesn't have the berms on the walls, I think that the distance he's referencing probably is from the berm edge over. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. Where the berm starts, right. Not where the concrete starts.
So once you berm that down to grade, then it's 20 feet from there to the park, I think was what he was saying.
Your Honor.
Yes, Councilman Gard.
Matt, I could go with you. We could stake the four corners fairly easily. And
That'd be great.
and then we could get measurements back to the council to exactly where they're at. Wouldn't be that difficult. And we could get Joel and stake those, and wouldn't take but half an hour or so at your leisure.
Well, and I think, Your Honor, I think seeing what we're talking about here is that, I mean, I guess it'd be our intention to put as close to that tot lot as possible to make it safe. I mean, we weren't trying to push it out further
Yeah,
towards
no,
federal.
I understand.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're all communicating the same thing here.
And we want those berms at a percentage that they're mobile,
That's right.
That they're mobile?
that they're mowable, so we don't tip a machine over.
Mowable. Okay. Does anyone have any ideas about what the existing skate park could be used for then? That would be a concern that I would have. I know just as Mr. Weaver has a concern about taking the tennis courts and turning it into a skate park, and we're giving up one form of recreation for another. I have a little bit of concern about taking, a beautiful park and putting a skate park in the middle, and I know for skaters why a skate park is the most beautiful thing. I understand that. For some of us older fogies, why that's not necessarily the case. And so, when you go down there and you see the footprint of this and what you're talking about, it's a sizable piece of ground, and we'll have to take out several trees and et cetera, and that concerns me a little bit, but, and then, okay, after we move that, then we're left with a big piece of sidewalk over here with, so.
Your Honor,
Councilman Guard.
I think the suggestion of maybe surfacing it all up to one level and turning it into a parking area, the committee was talking about, and we saw some conceptual drawings that put a parking lot back in the front of that. If we expand that parking, there's lots of activities that we would need to bring it to one surface. Would be less of a hazard if we would do that, but it could be a less expensive surface than the skaters need. And at that point, then we'd have a place that we could do our farmers market. We'd have a place for, maybe even, what do they call those? Maybe they have flea markets. We could get a monthly flea market going, or there's lots of uses for that. And that there's even connection already in place to that parking lot, the existing parking lot, onto this pad. So I would even make the argument those levels aren't that extreme that we couldn't ramp those and not make it level. We could still use that. We just had to maybe put some handrails in and things where people could be mobile around it. So I don't think that it's a bad idea to use that for those ground activities that people need hard surfaces to work on.
I know when we have Day in the Park, parking is a real issue. And if you've ever tried to cross Federal with your tent in one hand and chairs in the other and try to get across, it's a dangerous situation. So that's the only thing I can envision that could potentially be used for. But from the aerial view, it's a pretty good sized piece of ground. So.
Your Honor?
Okay. Yes, Councilman
That
Larson.
would certainly alleviate all the parking that is on the East Fremont there. That would be a natural for getting the people, or getting parking off of the street and utilizing the park. That's the biggest problem we have, is non-utilization of the best asset we have.
Your Honor.
Okay, yes, Councilman Fabian.
And I would echo that. I mean, just last night at the concert, they had quite a huge crowd, and I mean, parking is an issue anytime there's a lot of events going on. And in watching City Park this summer, I can say that, at least to my eye, since I've lived in Riverton, it's the most utilized it's been, I think, and I hope that's a continuing trend. And I think parking is definitely the right place to look. If you look downtown right now and see, 422 Main is something that's being used like crazy, where an old abandoned building used to be, and I think this could certainly draw that kind of popularity as well.
Okay. Any other comments?
I would agree, excuse me,
Yes.
Your Honor, that with Councilman Fabion's observation of City Park, I think every one of these kids here would vouch for that and say that the park has been considerably cleaner.
Wonderful.
And amazing, yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's really good news. Okay.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I
Councilman Christensen.
do want to say something. I like the location. I like everything about it. The one comment I have is about this sign. I personally like the sign where signs have been for many, many years, the 40-something years I've lived here. I like them at the intersection. I think they can be placed there properly, whether they're professionally done or not, because we make ordinances that allow political signs wherever we want them. Why can't the citizens or organizations put their signs right there in a designated area? I mean, you don't want it up and down Federal, but I think fair is fair. We need to put signs for your organization, other ones. I personally like that because a lot of times people don't have time to read the paper, hear all the notices, but you always come to the corner of Main and Federal at least once a day, if not 100 times a day. So I like the sign at that intersection so people know what's going on. Because if the politicians in town can do it, why can't the citizens?
Your Honor,
Yes, Councilman Fabian.
do you need a motion on this?
Yes, I think we probably do.
Okay.
And,
Sir,
yes,
I guess my feeling on the sign is just the opposite. Again, I'm back into the mode of saying is that, you know, you're gonna have a wide variety then of signs down there. And, I mean, I don't think the park is a place for us to have a large amount of advertising. So I disagree with you know, once again, we let one organization, then, as Mr. Weaver said, you open that door to have every organization saying, I want to put my sign there. If you open it up, I think we're just going to have an advertising spot as opposed to a city park.
But, Your Honor,
Yes,
I mean, I
Councilman
agree to some
Christensen.
extent. I think there has to be limitations on it, but for the 40-something years I've lived here, I mean, it's never been a huge problem. It just happened to be a spray-painted sign that advertises a huge thing in this town every year for many years. I thought it brought a lot of business to them and I think if we put a limit on where that sign can be, how far back it can be, I don't particularly care if it's spray painted or not, if it's gonna benefit a lot of people that do a lot of good things in this town. And it's harder and harder to get people to your events, plain and simple, whether it's a daycare event or a skate park. I like it, and it fair's fair. If government officials can put signs wherever they want, why can't citizens? Plain and simple.
government officials can't put signs
Well,
where they
we
want
changed the ordinance where we could put them in the right of way.
in the right of way
Yeah.
of the citizens
Yeah,
in front of your home.
but there
But
was a lot of
not
opposition to that.
not in front of, on city property. That was not changed.
Well, I know, but-
Anywhere on city property. It was only private citizens. So, is
But
my understanding.
There was a lot of heat over that. Some
Yeah.
people didn't
Well,
want
there
those,
was-
but
yeah.
I just think fair.
Your Honor.
Thank you.
I would have a tendency, and I've stated that before, I think Mary Ellen's correct. I think that intersection, and we'd have to have somebody pay attention to it. The problem with this sign is that this sign wants to stay up until we hit the goal. And so it would take away the effectiveness of what I see happening there. I think we could set a very tasteful and off the ground, up in the air banner, somewhat like Lander has over its Main Street, that's on a cable, that can be changed, that is available. The signage would have to fit that system, and then the balloon rally. And what I'm thinking of is when people are coming through town, they're not from, if they're spending the night in town, pretty hard to find or even understand that the rendezvous is happening. if you don't see something that's right there. And I did see today in a couple places a really tasteful banner is Todd, is the chamber putting that out, that of the events per
I'm
happening?
not sure on that.
I saw that at Arby's, so it has the date. It's fairly big. It's taped to the Arby's countertop, and someone had one in the bullpen tonight. Unless you see that, you don't know what's happening in Riverton. And when you pull into Lander, they have that banner up for what's happening that week. And if they were the same size, tastefully done, this sign doesn't fall in that category in my mind, because this sign wants to stay up until we achieve the goal and get the money brought to the bank. But if we had those seasonal signs that somebody could be driving through town, even a local resident, it would remind them that the rodeo's on and that they ought to stay in town that evening and participate. And so I see a real use for the signage. I think there ought to be some signage put in that park that says there are restrooms. Our city staff does a wonderful job of taking care of those restrooms, and they're good restrooms. And we ought to have that signage put in that park so people that are out of town can use it. And I think we're just missing a great opportunity at the end of the street. 90 degrees from that in the alley to the north of Main is a feature that's cost you thousands of dollars to advertise on. And I think we're just missing a real wonderful opportunity for those civic activities that we're having, that we want to be successful. Thank you.
Yeah, Your Honor, I just wanted to echo that. Staff talked about this at length, and that's where we came to the conclusion that these signs are different. And we were supportive of what Councilman Gard was talking about, was, a nice, tasteful 2 wood posts that would have eyelets on the end, and you'd be able to either raise it up a little ways, and they'd be responsible for doing that. It would be tasteful, but it would only be in a small location. Because once you open it up, then you get them stacked all the way up and down Federal, and then you can't even see the park of what it is. And that's why this one, we didn't think it fall in the same category, because it could be up for 2 years, potentially.
Why don't we go ahead and, I think Councilman Fabian was prepared to make a motion on the location, and then we get that nailed down, then we can come back if we want to and decide.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I would move to approve the proposed location in City Park for the Central Wyoming Skateboard Association's skate park.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the location for the skate park. Is there further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, and mayor votes aye. Congratulations, you've got a place.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council.
And now, do we want to take the staff recommendation for their promotional sign and have it on the footprint, is my understanding, for the fundraising that they will be doing? Is there a motion to that effect? Well, we don't want to have a sign.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I would make a motion to put a sign there. It is our idea that we want to build this, and we've got a lot of money invested.
Right.
We need to raise this money as quickly as possible to get this feature in place. And so let's come out of normal. I don't think that the park should be littered with political signs or any other kind of sign. But this is, if we're, lots of times you see the future location of a building posted, and it's there for 2 years before the funds are raised. And so I would make the motion that we approve a sign that is 7 by 8. And I guess one of the other things that makes that really work is it needs to be tastefully done and well positioned and well maintained, and not let it fall into disrepair. But because it is going to take a little time. We're only about a quarter of the way up the scale. So
Second it.
thank you.
Okay, and this, just so that we're all understanding, it's on the footprint of the skate park. Correct.
Works for me.
Is there further discussion?
Your Honor,
Yes,
So-
Councilman Christensen.
footprint of the skate park, so,
Correct.
I mean, it is,
So it will
Not quite
be,
sure what that-
it will be internal to the park. It won't be facing Federal. Or it may be
will.
facing Federal if that's the way they choose to put it, but it won't be right next to Federal.
it won't be at the intersection.
No,
So-
it'll be within the confinements. If the skate park was the tennis court, it'll be in the middle of the sign would be in the middle of the tennis court. But it's not, it's gonna be the footprint of the
Or
skate park.
I would say somewhere within the light green area on the map that just shows the footprint. So I think we're talking putting the sign somewhere within that light green area in the park.
I was kind of talking about it at the intersection. I think the sign should go there at a limited amount. I just think it brings attention to what we're doing and what the community's doing.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Councilman Guard, can you clarify the intent of your motion? Was the intent the footprint of the park, or was the intent
Yeah,
the intersection?
I'm fine with the footprint of the park. I think the more you can read it, the more money we're gonna raise. So if we put it in the back bathroom, you're not gonna see it much. And so, if it's tastefully done, and that's, I think that's something that they've done in the past, and I just think the faster we raise the money, the faster the kids are skating. So I will make the motion to be accessible to Federal, and if it dies, it dies. So within 20 feet of Federal would be my motion.
Okay.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded to allow the Skateboard Association to put their park within 20 feet of Federal.
Their sign.
I'm sorry?
Their sign, not their.
Yes, not the skate park, I'm sorry. I misspoke, their sign. Wow, that would be quite a change. Is there further discussion?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Councilman.
Give me an idea what 20 feet is. I usually have
From
to
here
base.
to map.
Me to Steve.
You just do? Okay.
Sir, again, I'll just make the comment, to have a sign up for that length of time. Again, I just think that we're gonna open ourselves up to a lot of requests and have a hard time
And I think
turning
that,
other organizations down.
and I think that is the reason that the staff was not recommending that, but here we are.
Your Honor,
Yes,
I think any other organization that would like to improve City Park and build a new facility, we would consider putting a sign in there with a thermometer on it.
Your Honor, might I add?
yes.
We're not requesting that it be in for a full 2 years either. That's something to keep in mind. We may make a couple of these. We may make, I know that Scott Pfister at Fremont Therapy has no problem putting it out in front of his, right next to the schools. So if it becomes a problem later, and it gets brought up in the council again, it's up to you.
Will
But
this be the only sign?
that hasn't been voted by the club to spend those funds yet on another sign, but that's what I would like to do. Make a few of them,
And I think that's what I would encourage. As Councilman Guard has pointed out, the more publicity you have with it, then the greater chance of raising funds, and I think we're all supportive of that. I don't think that's the issue at all. But I recall when the Rendezvous Committee put their sign up, and then the next day, I've got 2 garage sales down there, and then you go and talk to people and say, get your sale down. Well, what's the difference between us and the Rendezvous? People don't see the difference. And I think we've got a beautiful park, and that's the reason it's beautiful is because we're making that effort to keep it cleaned up. And so I don't disagree that this is a beautiful sign, but by putting it up, it just makes it harder to justify and rationalize, as Councilman Canan is pointing out, to keep it that way. And so it's an interesting conundrum. So anyway, but we have a motion and a second on the floor at this time to allow the 7 by 8 foot sign to be placed within 20 feet of Federal. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed?
No.
And the mayor votes no as well. Okay, so the sign will be allowed to be within 20 feet of federal, and we'll move forward. Okay, any other comments on that issue before we move on? Okay, congratulations, Matt. Good job.
I think he's talking to his co-chair right now.
Oh, he's talking. He left.
One of our kids needed to use the bathroom. So.
Okay. Okay. So anyway, the vote was that we would allow the sign within 20 feet of federal. So
Fantastic.
I think you would need to get with Joel and Stephen to see what the best placement would be, and kind of like that. So, okay.
Great.
Good luck.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, council committee reports and council member roundtable. Councilman Smith.
I don't have any reports tonight, Your Honor, other than there's going to be no chamber meeting this month, so I won't have an upcoming report for July.
Okay. Councilman Larson.
I spent a week in Key Largo, and on a side trip, I was watching them pick up garbage. And our garbage truck has one man on it. They have roll-out dumpers. They park their garbage outside just like we do. Except in Key Largo, they have one man driving, two men walking, and a support vehicle.
Wow.
And it takes them between 3 and 5 minutes per garbage stop. At the same time, we were told that it takes 90 seconds to empty garbage. Well, it doesn't. It takes less than 30 seconds to drive up, empty garbage, and move on in ours with one person. We are fortunate to have such equipment and such a limited amount of effort to keep our city clean. That's all I have.
Okay. Okay, Councilman Fabian.
Yes, the PAWS board hasn't had a formal meeting in a little bit, but they have organized a couple of pretty successful adopt-a-thons, so thanks to everybody who decided to adopt a pet down there. And coming up the same day as the balloon rally, in conjunction with the car and bike show, is the Redneck Barbecue, which is a kids carnival, and so if you have the chance to go take part in that, that's also a fundraiser for the animal shelter. Additionally, the Parks and Trails Committee has been meeting regularly, and they are actually currently accepting comments from the public. There is a website that you can actually take a brief survey on, so I would encourage anyone who is able to do so. The web address is gofremontcounty.com/parks. So please take a few moments and put your input in on what you think of our park system and what things you think would improve that. Additionally, on July 8th at the council meeting, we're asking members of the public to come and give your input regarding the Parks and Trails master plan. So those are the two big things with that committee. Thank you.
Your Honor.
Thank you.
What was
Yes,
that?
Councilman
What was
Garza.
The web address?
The web address again?
It's gofremontcounty.com/parks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Councilman Christensen.
Sir, I have no committee reports per se, but we've started up a little, we call it trash talking committee. it's a lot of the city employees, myself, and coming together to try to resolve some of the issues that the citizens have. I just want to remind everybody, July 12th from 10 to 2 in the city parking lot. So we should have a lot of people out and about town that day, because that is Day in the Park. Yes. So we will be having some demonstrations. Everything is revolved around trash and trash talking. So we'll have some truck demonstrations, how these work, how fast they are versus, different operations. We'll have something like that. Demonstrations about the tag system that the city has in place, recycling issues, the benefits of, and what the correct way to do that is. A lot of those issues are brought up, and how people can really save some money doing that. Do's and don'ts of recycling and what goes where and why. And some of the businesses can save a lot of money. There's a lot of businesses out there that aren't recycling cardboard that could be saving a lot of money. So we'll have some games. Demonstrations with rollouts for people that are concerned about that, about moving them full, empty, over different surfaces. We'll have a little rollout bingo going on, so people that participate in some of the demonstrations, they can participate in the rollout bingo for some prizes.
Rollout races.
Yeah, we're gonna have a big bingo for there. If people that participate and listen to some of the demonstrations, and there's free pop and hot dogs that day, so we're hoping a lot of people show up. Any volunteers that want to come down, we'll be more than happy to put them to work, so it'll be kind of fun. I think it's an issue that obviously gets a lot of attention. In this past week, I had the opportunity to make a run with Bill with the garbage. I had a great time. These guys work so hard. I rode along one day, and I saw a lot of the do's and don'ts that people are doing, so it really brings to light some of the issues, and we could probably even be faster if we were a little bit, if people knew some of those things that are going on out there that slow the trucks down. These guys do a great job, and ladies that participate, I commend them. I had a great day. It was really, really informative, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Canam.
Nothing, sir.
Okay. Councilman Guard.
Your Honor, I would like to commend you on the correspondence that you received from Barrasso's office and from the governor's office. Well stated in your letters, and we appreciate that from the task force, your efforts to push those forward. Seems like a simple thing. They make awfully hard, don't they? Mm-hmm. And the articles that we've had in the paper, Mr. Peck's article the other night, highlighted a few of those things that are effective to Sheridan and all other areas. And so I appreciate your efforts to support that and to write those letters, and I appreciate the responses. There is a task force meeting in DuBois on the 10th at 2 o'clock at the headwaters there. And so anybody that could attend that or had input for that, I'm sure that they'd be glad for that.
What time will that be, Rich?
2 to 4.
2 to 4.
And the rec board, it will meet, I believe, this next Monday, so we'll be in shape for that. So we'll have that back next week, that report. Thank you, Your Honor.
Good. Mr. Weaver, City Administrator's report, please.
Well, most of you took my thunder. I'd like to commend Councilwoman Christensen on, she's taken this little trash talk event on herself. She's the organizer and putting it together, and I think it will be at least fun and informative and on a lot of different things. The main focus was about the trash issue we currently have, but it's also to talk about some of the recycling and tag system that we implemented some time ago, and not a lot of people using the tag system, not a lot, and so I think we need to promote that more. But I think it's, even on the recycling, we found that a lot of the recycling centers we currently have are really dirty, meaning there's people throwing stuff in there that's if it's all plastic and they're throwing paper and everything else in there, and that makes it that much harder to get that stuff sorted at the baling station, which takes even longer. And so we need to do a better job of educating people on the importance of putting only those type of items in there. And then next week for the work session, we will be having that, I think we got 2 items. We're going to talk about the parking lot regulations. Chief Broadhead's going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to go in with the Parks and Trails Committee, and they're going to kind of lead that off. It's going to be exciting because we're going to try something I don't know if we've tried before, but on the bottom of the screen there's going to be a tickler, and it's going to be having this little website of where gofremont.county.com/parks on the bottom, and encouraging people to go to that website while they're watching the work session and fill out the survey. And it's fairly a short survey, so people should be able to put some input, and we should have some results.
26 pages?
No. No, not like the Wham one.
Couldn't believe that. Is that all?
That's all, Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, that was quite a survey that they had at Wham. Started on it, and after I got to the 6th page, I looked and it said 26 pages, and I thought, holy smokes. So that was something else. Okay. Thank you for your comments, Councilman Guard. I appreciate that. That was nice. Good discussion this evening, and I'm glad to see that we're finally moving forward with a home for the skate park. So it's through your persistent efforts, Matt. We appreciate it. So,
Your Honor?
yes.
I had one other question come to mind. I had a citizen ask if there's a place on the city website where they can get the recycling schedule, and I looked and wasn't able to find one. Is that on there? Where is it?
Your Honor, yes, it is on the website. It is under Departments, Public Services, Lands Division, Recycling. Or actually, it might be sanitation first and then recycling. It's buried.
All right, that's why I couldn't find it. All right, thank you.
The wonders of technology. Okay, the only thing that I had attended an FCAG meeting the other night, the Fremont County Association of Governments in Shoshone, and other than having a very good meal that was prepared by the mayor of Shoshone, Scott Peters, well, we had a presentation by Tracy Cook, who's the Fremont County librarian, and she had done an informal survey of the different communities when she came on board. And she had copies of the results of that informal survey for each of the community members that were there. And I'll just read a few of the highlights regarding Riverton. I also picked up a copy of Landers, and the rest of them are available if anyone is interested from Tracy Cook. Her number is 332-1600, extension 401, if you want to give her a call. But quality of life, this is regarding Riverton, quality of life / community development, lack of civic pride, less volunteerism, sense of entitlement, community has low self-esteem, mentioned 8 times. Lack of recreational cultural opportunities for all ages. However, kids were mentioned often, mentioned 4 times. Trash along the roadways, need for more beautiful neighborhoods and buildings, mentioned 3 times. Infrastructure, affordable housing, mentioned 3 times. Lack of airline travel, mentioned 1 time. Health and social services, alcohol, substance abuse, mentioned 9 times. Parental issues including latchkey kids, parental apathy, need for parenting skills training, mentioned 5 times. The following were mentioned 3 times. Poverty is an issue, early literacy, early childhood education, adult literacy. The following were mentioned 2 times. Crime and violence, addiction, especially gambling, hunger, people need job skills, employment preparation and training. The following were mentioned 1 time. financial literacy training, stress on families because people are commuting, aging population, sight and hearing loss, bad driving, pedestrian safety, grandparents raising kids, loneliness, need to serve people for whom English is a second language, older generation is retiring, knowledge is slipping away, lack of quality health care, tribal relations, need to address racism, work better with tribes on the reservation. EPA decision has created a lot of fear and tension, mentioned 8 times. Technology, the need for technology training mentioned 2 times. Keeping up with technology and what it means for us as a society mentioned 1 time. Economic development, need better paying jobs mentioned 2 times. The following were mentioned 1 time. Uncertainty about energy industry, need for economic diversity, formal education and educational opportunities. Education is not valued, low graduation rates mentioned 3 times. So those are just some highlights that she was able to pick up by just going around the community and visiting with people that she remarked, and I think in a lot of the areas she's hit the nail. You know, that these are things that we're all concerned about. Trash along the roadways, alcohol, our children and whatnot. There's plenty of work that we need to do in our community, and so I just thought that I would share that with you and the community. So, and I think with that, we have a executive session. Is that correct, Mr. Weaver?
Yes, Your Honor.
The chair would entertain a motion to convene into executive session for the purpose of personnel, considering the appointment, employment, right to practice, dismissal, complaints, or charges against a public officer, professional person, or employee in accordance with Wyoming Statute 16-4-405 AII, and for the purpose of considering offering, tendering wages, salary, benefits, or terms of employment during negotiation in accordance with Wyoming Statute 16-4-405 AX. Is there a motion?
Your Honor, I'd move to adjourn into executive session.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are now in executive session.